All right. I clicked the button and it is always takes a second for this to start working, but as I like to say with these things, as long as everything is working the way that it should be working, we are now live. So hello and welcome to everyone who's watching the Written Melanin channel, or wherever this day may have found you. I'm so glad that you are here. And we are here for a Melanin chat. And wow, when I was setting this up, I realized that we have not done this since July. So it's been a couple of months. I hope you guys are doing well. And as you can see, I'm here with the one, the only, the wonderful, the amazing, my good friend Tatiana OB. And we are here to talk bookish, writerish things. And we're going to give everyone a second to get here because I know how these notifications on YouTube work. But that being said, how is everyone? Shout out to everyone who's already in the chat. So Ben was here first. Timothy is here. Good morning. Mags is here. La is here. Hello, hello. I'm glad you guys could make it. Darian is here. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for being the first ones here. Man, how have you been since July? And Tatiana, how are you doing this morning?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. As you said July, I was like, man, I don't even remember July. I feel like so much happened since then.
You
Like,
know, I feel like we live in a different world than when July was here. So, um, in July, I was actively writing Project Necromancer. So that has, I mean, I'm done with that now. Things have changed
yeah,
since
you
then.
finished it now.
Yeah. Deja is here. Hello. Welcome, love. And this is your reminder, your friendly reminder to go ahead and tap the like button if you haven't already. So, you know, it helps the algorithm, does all the things. Yeah. And also your reminder to go ahead and join the channel if you want to catch the after chat. It's the chat after the chat. And we got things to talk about because things have been happening in the world. So, let's see here. Life has been lifing, but we here, we breathe in, we are. We are. I don't know what's happening to the chat because like it's here but it's not, and it's like stretched somehow. I don't know what's
Oh, I see
happening.
what you mean. Like on the little Melanin Chat square thingy.
Yeah. I don't know what's happening right now. To be fair, you guys, I don't I don't set up the chat. Ben does. So I don't know what's happening. It's off. It's like way off. Hold on. I can fix this. I can fix this. I'm not stupid. I mean, not Ben getting on the floor. I can't.
Click on it. The where it says fill mode, change that from stretch to like.
No, that's not. What?
Oh, it's cropped for some reason. So slide it
I
over.
love the dedication.
You see what I'm talking about?
I mean, I see that it's cropped. I don't know why it's cropped. That you see what's happening?
Yes,
The
I
chat
see what's
rebelled.
happening. I'm trying to. That is so strange. Why would it do
I
that?
don't know.
Oh,
I don't
it's
know.
moving.
Yeah. This is what happens when you're away from the channel. The chat rebels. Yep. You know, this is clearly my fault, and I know that it is. Oh wait. What if we undo that
And then hit the refresh.
and then hit the refresh? Y'all hear Ben
Yeah,
over here in the corner just talking me through this?
yeah. All right. You let them.
Somebody say something in the
Yeah,
chat.
yeah. They gotta talk to you.
Somebody put something in the chat. We're problem
Oh,
solving in real time.
okay. We have it connected.
Oh, okay. It is still not right.
It's too wide.
It's too wide, and I don't know. I can't crop it to the right size. I don't know what's happening right now.
Uh,
Wait, wait, and then what the heck, man? This is stupid.
okay. For some reason, it's like a standard width.
I don't know why it's doing this. I don't know if we're gonna have a chat today, you guys. I don't know
Well, I
why.
mean, at least they can chat to each other.
Um,
Yeah, I'm gonna put it here. It's gonna look a little wonky. Just know that I tried my best, and there is nothing I can do about it. Yeah, yeah, cause
It's okay. Raja has some company over there.
I'm trying to think of
it's gonna
a
be
new way I
tiny.
can do it that's fast.
Uh, I don't know, but we got to move on, cause
I'll I'll see about
If you
it.
guys want to, if you guys would be happy to just hop on a random like chat at some point in the future to figure out what's happening, that would be fantastic. Because we don't know.
I should be able to help troubleshoot it. Like I could probably go into the chat and see random messages. So you figure it out.
Yeah, I don't know why it decided to do this, but we're gonna move on because I don't. It just decided that it was just going to start not working, and now my brain is definitely one of those places where it's just like, oh, you thought. Anyway, anywho, anyhow, this is what it is for today. It's not the chat unless something goes awry. I don't even think it's working now. Anywho, you're not a streamer till the chat doesn't work as it should. Facts. I feel very professional right now. Very professional.
It's because I'm visiting.
It's because I haven't been doing this, but it's fine. It's fine. That being said, you guys, we do have a melanin spotlight for today. It is The King Must Die by Kimi Ashingiwa. I have it here. It comes out on November 4th, and I'm actually really excited about this book. As y'all can see, I have been reading it. It's thick, and I've actually been reading it, you guys. And y'all know that I'm a chronic DNFer, hence the DNF book club. I think you should sign up for that. Me and Tatiana are there as well. I have her doing a lot. Just so y'all know, being friends with me is very dangerous because you will be conscripted to do things that you had no intention of doing.
I mean, I like to talk about books.
That being said, The King Must Die by Kimi Ashingiwa. It is a adult slash new adult. The main character is like 27. I want to say 27, 29, one of those in the book. And let me tell you, this book already has me locked in. I am curious, and the world building is actually, I feel like I'm learning a lot. I feel like I'm learning a lot right now, but I digress. The summary from the book, it's not the back of the book because the arc ain't it. But the summary from the official summary for the book reads: Finn's world is crumbling. New Earth, a once promising planet gifted by the all-powerful alien makers, now suffers from failed terraforming, leaving its people on the brink of collapse. Finn has spent her life working as a mercenary bodyguard for a cunning magistrate, entangled in the politics of the empire that shattered her family. But then her fathers, her last remaining tethered to hope, are executed by the ruthless sovereign, who marks Finn for the same fate. With nothing left to lose, Finn escapes with a single map and an old quarterstaff, embarking on a dangerous quest to seek out the last remnants of her parents' rebellion. But the underground insurgents she finds may be even more dangerous than the Sovereign's army. At the center of it all stands Alakai, the Sovereign's heir, a brutal, power-hungry force of destruction. Though he embodies everything Finn despises, his dangerous plans might be the Empire's last chance at survival, or the final push to its doom. Perfect for fans of fast-paced dystopian adventures, intergalactic intrigue, and morally complex heroes, The King Must Die weaves an unforgettable story of rebellion, survival, and impossible choices. Will Finn save her world or ensure its destruction? And I can honestly say that thus far, it has been delivering on what it says that it's going to deliver as far as complex world building and morally great characters, because I am not even halfway through it, and I'm like, girl, Finn has it rough. Finn has it rough, and I'm like, I don't always agree with her choices, but I'm like, I can see how we got here. I understand how we made it here, you know? So, highly recommend that you guys pre-order this one. It comes out on November 4th, and yeah, I kind of want somebody to read it so I could talk to them about it, because I'm like, is it me? Is it me? And yeah, so I'm excited about this one. Genuinely. I'm actually going to be reading this over me birthday that is coming up next week. Your birthday is next week too, Tatiana. This week. Your birthday is this week.
Yeah. Our birthdays are really close. We're both Libras.
Heck yeah, Libra season. Also, hello, Winter. Hello, Ash. Glad you guys could make it to the chat. You know what? I think I'm just going to leave the book up because the chat's not really working. So You know, I'll take it down. I'll take it down. But just remember to go pre-order the book. There's a link in the description box, and y'all know it takes you to the Melanin Library, your online database of books written by Black authors. Wow, I have not said that on stream in a while. Click the link, support the library. There we go. That being said, you guys, couple things. My birthday is coming up. Tatiana's birthday is coming up, so you should go buy our books to help us celebrate our birthdays. Okay, just saying that they're down there on the screen. So no excuses if you don't have them already. That being said, I'm excited for this discussion. What's up?
Can I mess with it while you're talking, or is that going to be too distracting?
Ben would like to play with the chat while we're talking. So he's going to be over here doing technical stuff, and Tatiana are going to have a great non-distracted conversation.
Okay. If it gets to be too much.
And there he goes. All right. um, that being said, I do want to do this before Ben starts playing with things. We are doing a Q&A today. So
I see your forehead fit.
I'll just, do one of these numbers. Let me see. No, I really do need this for just a second.
Okay.
Live chat. Thank you. All right, so I'm all over the place today. I'm so sorry, you guys. When the chat's not working, I get distracted like real bad, real bad. I support what Mag said. Buy all of our books. Maybe not beg for the next one, but we're working on it. We're working on it. But that brings us to our topics today: how to finish a book. And we got some things. We got some notes because we've done this a couple of times. Like I was really thinking about it. I was like, between the two of us, we've finished double-digit books between the two of us.
Not counting the ones that haven't published.
Not counting the ones that haven't been published. The ones that we talk about publicly. Because I got a couple that are like out there on the internet that we just don't talk about. But that being said, if you guys have questions, I did start a Q&A, so feel free to drop them. We do want this to be like as helpful as possible, but let's start at the beginning of like Tatiana. Let's start with like, how do you know when a book is like done, right? Because I think everybody kind of has this concept of, oh, you start writing a book, you keep going. But I think one of the hardest things, especially when you're doing it for like the first time, is like, when do you reach the end? And I'm starting with Tatiana because I know I know what her process was like a little bit, a wee bit. Oh, something new is happening. You see
While Chelsea's distracted, I'll answer the question. So for me, like finishing a book, I feel is when the premise has been achieved. But of course, as a first-time author, you have to know what the premise is and what the book is about. So for example, with my Forging of Age series, the premise is these young adults in a coming-of-age competition in the desert to become adults, right?
Mhm.
And so the premise is achieved when they succeed in the competition and they become adults. Now, the whole becoming adults thing was a little bit more complicated and nuanced, which is why there's a duology. Or even in the book that I'm writing currently, where let's see, this is the first time I've actually like said the pitch for this book. So let me do it off the top of my head. So we have an heir to the throne has to ally with the heir of a rival family line to hunt down a leviathan in an elaborate plan to escape his toxic family. So the end of the book is when he finally escapes his toxic family. Or if it's a tragedy, he doesn't. So, we have to answer that question or answer the premise that you brought up, or, that's the reason of the story. Now, again, a lot of first time authors, they may not know what their book is. They're just starting and they're just writing. And it's completely okay for that first draft to just be like, I don't know where I'm going. But that's the point of the first draft, is tell yourself the story as the author. So by the time you get to the first draft, hopefully you have some idea of, okay, what it is, like what it is you're writing, to help you further refine, okay, this is where I start and this is where the best place to end.
I agree with all of that. I'm listening. I'm also like watching Ben fix this, and I'm just like, how, Sway? That doesn't make no freaking sense. But thank you for fixing it. Um, but I think what you hit on is really important as far as like understanding the premise of what it is that you're writing and understanding when you get to the end of it, because I think a lot of times, at least, and I can't speak for nobody else. I'm going to speak for myself, and I'm going to be honest, right? A lot of times, I start with a vibe. I'm like, I know that I want to put this character in this world. What are they gonna do? I don't know. I just like especially with Project Necromancer. I was just like, I just want a necromancer. I want a black necromancer. She's gonna be. I want her to be exceptionally like girly, but I also want her to be exceptionally like murder. You know, like I want those things to go together. But it was kind of like, okay, I don't understand what's happening in the story. And so if you guys were here, and I think most of you were, it's like as I was writing the story, it was like, okay, this is fun, but where is the plot? What is happening? And it's very hard to finish a book when you don't have a plot, when you don't know what the plot is, when you don't know what you're going, when you don't know what you're doing. So, Tatiana, she's smarter than me. She has like a whole pitch. And she's like, I know what's happening in this book. Whereas I was just like, I don't know. She's going to kill some people. She's going to raise some people. And then the plot came after draft 4. I'll say.
Sometimes that's what it is. Like I know, like I try to have an idea going in because it keeps me focused. If I didn't, I just be like, ah, I just be wandering around,
That's what it be like.
having fun with myself. I guess.
That's literally what it is. It's just like I'm just out here vibing and trying to figure out. But I do find that for me at least, the more that I write, the more I'm like, okay, I understand this character, I understand what they would do, and I understand how we got here, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
and and sometimes the book is different when I know the characters, and it's different than when I don't know the characters. So let's say I'm writing a sequel and I know the characters and I know their actions, pretty easy.
Yeah.
But with characters that I'm just now discovering and I'm just now figuring it out, sometimes it takes draft to figure out their voices and figure out the choices and decisions that they make. So sometimes like my endings are very not set in stone. They're very ambiguous until like maybe the third or the fourth draft because by then I understand, okay, this is what these characters' choices will make. Like
Mhm.
it's all going to the same ending, but somehow like their choices are like, okay, is different. So it's still very like not set in stone the ending for me until like the end. So like okay, like I know that he's toxic family, right? Like political drama, et cetera, et cetera. But how that gets resolved might change
Mhm.
throughout the draft.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I know that for my stories, generally speaking, I usually know where it needs to end because I feel like this is also part of the conversation of knowing like how to finish it, right? Because we've both written series, but we've also written like the end of a story where it's just like this is a permanent end, right? Um, and I feel like those are also two very different things. So for those of you who don't know, Project Necromancer is a standalone. So it's just like the end is the end. Um, I did write it in such a way that like the world is bigger. So if I ever want to come back to the world, I can. But it is very much an independent standalone book. And I feel like writing the end for that was very different from writing the end to like We Are the Origin or Death Among the Stars, where it's just like this is a series. I'm intentionally leaving this and ending it in a place where there's going to be another book, right? Um, and I feel like with Project Necromancer, I knew where it needed to end as far as like where I was working towards. My problem was like, how do we get there in the word count that I'm trying to stay within? Because that is a whole other conversation, which we'll come back to. But the first thing that I wanted to ask you, Tatiana, was like, um, how do you how do you decide where a book needs to end, especially when you're writing a series and you know that there's going to be another book?
I actually look at my blurb. And there's a lot of suggestions. It's helpful to write the blurb even before you start, or even like through the draft to kind of help you figure out what the touchstone points in your book is or should be. But for the blurb for Bones to the Wind, the main conflict that it sets up is can these two rivals, Raja and Nico, come together and work together to survive this coming of age competition. And by the end of book one, they do that conflict is resolved. They do come together in their own ways. And then the second book opens it up bigger, right? Like the conflict's no longer between them. The conflict is between them and society.
Mm-hmm.
So it opens it up wider. So I do look at what that smaller conflict is. That is the third line between that one book, and that can be resolved in that one book, because I do believe it is more satisfying for the readers if something is resolved by the end of the book,
Yeah.
because you have like the small books and you have like the end of the series, and sometimes it can feel very unsatisfying. It's like, well, why did I read all this stuff? It's just world building setup. It's just nothing actually happens. Like, why do I need to get to the second book to have like a satisfying character arc or a satisfying plot arc?
Yeah.
So you want to think about it in regards to smaller books in series, as in these smaller arcs that can be resolved, that leads to a bigger arc among the entire series.
100% agree. Um, and the reason I'm agreeing with Tatiana is because I want you guys to know that she's the reason why We Are Dying Gods is the way that it is, because she pointed this exact thing out to me. So, and I'm sharing that because I want you guys to know that I'm not infallible, and this is definitely something that you learn along the way. Because We Are the Origin, I'm very proud of We Are the Origin, but also it came out at this point like 3 years ago, and I've been writing consistently since then. So I objectively am like, if I had to rewrite that book now, it would definitely be different. The pacing of it would be a little bit different, right? But it's also like I wanted to make sure that this is the thing that is happening. Like there is a certain growth, specifically in Brandy's arc, because her as the main character, her arc kind of guides the entire story, the entire trilogy, right? Her growth and the things that she's dealing with and growing through. But it's also one of those things where with We Are Dying Gods, I love Tatiana because she was really, literally like, Chelsea, something needs to happen. And that's the nice way of putting it. And I'm grateful for that because it's just like, yeah, something needs to happen in order for each book to feel satisfying, whether that's growth or whether that's action or whether something goes wrong. And I know that for me, as far as like the Wrath of the Gods trilogy, I definitely am looking at the books as a whole of like, okay, yes, they go together individually and there's a problem in each book that needs to be solved, like within, I'll say, the side quest initially, but the main quest that is spanning the three books, I'm also like, okay, I want to make sure that that goes together the way that it needs to. So when it comes to the end of the book, it's just like, did they complete the side quest necessary in order to defeat the main quest, right? It's kind of like when you play video games and they're like, hey, if you want to defeat the big bad, you have to go on these side quests and level up first before you can get here and fight the boss, right? So kind of that same kind of energy. Um, Read the chat. Also, shout out to JK Lambo, who is here. Hello, good morning. I hope you're doing well. Glad you could make it and stop by. Deja said, I'm definitely struggling to think of the plot for my next story. I have the premise, but it's purely vibes right now. Yeah, I feel that. I feel that. I
So,
think.
to add on to what you said previously, Chelsea, I do think that the difference between like a good book and a great book, and this comes with skill and it
Mhm,
comes with experience and practice, is it is important to like resolve something within the book, but a very skilled writer resolves multiple things.
mhm,
So they will resolve plot, they resolve character, and they will resolve relationships. So, for example, in um, Bones to the Wind, right? Like the relationship between Nico and Roger is resolved. The Raja's character growth, like has growth is resolved, and then the plot in regards to progressing the coming of age competition is also progressed. So
mhm.
there is resolution in multiple areas of the books, and not just the plot. So also think about how you can resolve character and how you can resolve relationships as well within a single book in a series.
Yeah. Especially when you're writing fantasy. The world building is important, but the making sure you're giving enough of everything, because I feel like sometimes we as fantasy authors, especially the advice out there, it's like, hey, make sure that your world building is clear. Make sure that your characters are clear. Make sure that everything is clear. But it's not just making sure that it's clear, making sure that there's enough conflict to move the story. Because the thing is, all of that takes up space. World building, character development, establishing a plot, like all of that takes up space in the book. And I think something that at least personally I run up against with fantasy books that come out, especially like in recent years, is that we spend the first half of the book establishing everything and there is no conflict, there is no investment into what's happening and moving the story along. And so um I think one pitfall that some authors can fall into is assuming that your reader is invested simply because the world is interesting. And it can be interesting, but something has to be happening. Something has to be moving us forward in a logical sense because we all understand, you pick up a book and things are happening for the plot. We want things to be happening because the characters are doing things and the plot is a part of it, if that makes sense. At least that's the book types of books that I enjoy, right? Where
And I have read examples of where kind of like a resolution, like part of the world building is part of the plot, and resolving that is part of the story. So, for example, like lots of coming of age stories where they're trying to figure out their powers and the magical powers, right?
mm-hmm.
So that's telling the reader what the magic system is, and by the end of the book, they've mastered the magic system.
Yeah.
So, like that's a resolution of both plot, character skill, and world building. So that's why you get like these coming of age stories that very, very similar, but goes along the same vein.
I agree. I agree. And I think that's also something that sometimes can be difficult as far as like knowing the difference between like having a character that is unfamiliar with the world, like you said, the coming of age and figuring things out, versus a character who is already incredibly familiar with it. It's just like working that in, because that is something that is a struggle in and of itself. I was trying to find the right words to say.
Yes, and it is, like, and this is you not unique to fantasy, but it is a fantasy issue in regards. There's a lot of world building. So how do we explain this to the reader? And one of the obvious answers is having a character that does not know this information. Typically, they're a novice, or typically they're a younger character who does not know the information. So there is a mouthpiece to explain the information.
Mm-hmm.
But I argue and challenge you that as you advance in your writing skills, that there are better ways to do it.
Tatiana said do better.
It's a journey. Writing craft is a journey.
It is. It is. And I think that is something that comes with practice and experience of being like, okay, I know how to do this with this method. Are there other ways to do it? And sometimes it's really hard because I will argue that with Project Necromancer, all of the main characters are familiar with like magic and how it works for the most part. So it was like there is no one really being like, hey, how does this work? Explain this to me, yada, yada, yada. But even if you don't have that self-insert character, you do still have to explain it to the reader because they don't know. I would argue that one of the best ways to do that is to show it, like literally just show the magic the way it's supposed to. And if you're going to break the rules, because in fantasy, generally speaking, and this is very broadly speaking, you usually have a set of rules. And then if you have like a main character, usually there's something special about them that allows them to break the rules or alter the rules or whatever. One of the things that I would say is like establish the rules before you break them. Because if you start with the character who's breaking them and then you see somebody else who's not, you're like, the readers becomes confused.
Yeah, it gets very confusing.
The only thing that I would say to that is if you're it's okay, this is very much anime reference, right? Because it happens a lot in isekai, right? But it's like if you start with the character who's completely breaking the rules, right? They have to also, I think a good pairing with that is when they don't know the regular rules. They don't know the basics, right? So it's like, yes, I can summon all powerful magic. And everybody else is like, how? And they're like, it just happens. And then they go into the actual world and the world is just like, So yeah, can you just like cast the a transcribe spell to copy this book? And they're like, what the heck is that? And they're like, you can cast all powerful magic, but you don't know the most basic of the basic of spells to copy a sheet of paper. How do we get here? How do we get here?
Yeah, one of the things that I do, if you guys want an example of it, in Sister Samurai, there is an ink-based magic system. And because it's a novella, it's very brief, and so every scene has to be effective. And so one of the things that I did was is with each fight scene, I showed different limitations of the magic system. So the different applications of it and different limitations of the magic system. So by the time I got to the final fight scene, I didn't have to explain anything. You knew exactly what was happening. So even just like it, during these small scenes, just showing how magic can be used in different ways without necessarily having to implement, having to tell people, can also be very effective.
Yes. Or you can always go the time and tested way of just having an expert who's just like, I know this and I'm going to explain it to you because it's my hyper focus. Welcome to my TED Talk. Okay, and also I do want to say that if you guys have any questions for us specifically, please do let us know, because we will sit here and just talk about ranting, writing, and fantasy and all of that, just because it's what we enjoy, it's what we love to do. But let's talk about writing a novella since you brought up Sister Samurai, because you do have to do a lot more in a lot less space, and so how do you, I guess, touch on everything and get to the end without feeling like this isn't enough space?
Right. I think one kind of going back to that premise, like there's definitely some premise that lends itself to longer works and some premises that you can fit in shorter works. And so one having the knowledge and just the understanding of what will lend itself to a smaller story. The premise of Sister Samurai, she's out running errands and she's just trying to get
Mm-hmm.
home. And there are demons in the way. So, I mean, kind of like a very Odyssey telling, right? Like the dude, he's just trying to get home from war. And there's all these things messing with him. But it is a premise that can be told in a short span of time. So, like when you and yeah, you can have things where it's like, oh yeah, I must like save the world and take down the evil villain in a novella format. Yes, sure.
Mm-hmm.
But just being understanding that like some premises and some plots are better shorter than longer, and that lends itself to different lengths. As you say,
Also,
you have a standalone, and I have a like the 300. I'm working on a 200,000 word novel right now, and there's just some premises that lend itself better to different lengths. So be wary of what you choose and what type of story you choose to fit the length of what you're trying to write.
yeah. Also, I'm gonna throw out the casual flex of Tatiana just bragging that she threw an Odyssey level story into a novella. Like that isn't forever long.
You think I missed that?
Just a subtle flex, subtle flex. But but no, I agree. I think knowing what you can and cannot fit um into a novella, and I will definitely say that writing a in a shorter format is definitely something that I don't think I would have tried until I have written a complete novel, right? Mostly because, and you can tell me if you know disagree or what your opinion is on this, Tatiana, but I feel like especially if you are in the beginning stages of your author journey, giving yourself as many words as you need to tell the story that you're trying to tell so that you can kind of figure out what kind of author, what kind of stories you like, right? Um because for me, I know that I love a conversation. I will talk the characters to death. That is me. I have to remember not to do that because the reader is not trying to sit here for 18 million conversations, right? But I, in the course of writing We Are the Origin and We Are Dying Gods and, Magic and the Melanin, etc., right? All of that, I realized that, okay, this is something that I enjoy, but it definitely adds length to my stories, right? It adds page count, it adds word count. And so being mindful of that so that when I did be like, okay, I'm ready to try my hand at this novella that I've been wanting to write, Death Among the Stars, it's like, okay, I know that this is the kind of story that I can tell in 30,000 words because a novella is 40,000 words or less. Um, and when you are moving from, okay, I wrote a 110,000 word book to, okay, I got 30,000 words to get this done, it's a different type of challenge, but it's also something where, okay, I know how I like to write. And I like to call myself long winded because I'm definitely the person who has to like cut things down, except when it comes to descriptions, because I'm not going to describe anything until you tell me you're confused. Other than that, I'm just like, I know I can be long winded. So having to be mindful of that and cut it down so that it fits is something that I have to be mindful of. I don't know if you think the same way as far as like your first couple of big projects, writing, as many words as you want. And before you try to like get it down to a particular structure, or if you think that's bad advice, or like, where do you land on that?
No, I definitely believe in writing, like don't limit yourself, especially that first draft. Like
Mm-hmm.
don't like write what you want to write and write what's in your heart to write. In regards to different links, we do have like real world examples. For example, like TV episodes or even versus movies. And I'm talking about
Mm-hmm.
TV episodes that are like 30-minute episodes, not these long 1 hour 1 hour episodes we're doing now. But like in regards to short and long format, like we experience even in our media and visual media, like the differences between what works in a long format, what works in like these very short 30 period chunks. So
Yeah.
definitely like explore like what works there. For me and for my journey, like I have published several books before now, and I know that I'm very comfortable at like a 240,000 word mark. I don't know what the page count translation to that is, but it's very long. And like I've also, because I also wrote fan fiction a bit in college, and I learned a lot from that in regards to what I'm naturally at. I know I'm naturally like a fast-paced author. I
Mm-hmm.
know I'm naturally like people are like, "Girl, slow down. Give us some downtime." Like,
Let me
give us
breathe.
a break. Let us breathe. So because of those experiences, like it is in my head. I'm like, okay, I need to give people a breather because one thing about like 240,000 words is the pacing of these stories tend to be a little different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a big I guess preference in trad and preference in a lot of works right now for the pacing to be very fast paced and go kind of just gradually like this.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're with these longer works, when you're over like having pacing that's more kind of an ebb and flow is a bit of a better breather for for your readers. Like you can't keep them clutching their heart for
No.
200,000 200,000 words. They gotta breathe. So different links does also lend itself to different types of pacing as well.
Absolutely. Because I know that I'm the opposite of Tatiana. I am such a slow paced writer, and I think sometimes, and not even sometimes, like I feel like at this point it's just a calling card. Like I'm gonna take you on a journey, and then everything is gonna be like bam, and then you're gonna be like the end, right? That's just kind of that's just kind of how I write stories. But it's also one of those things where I write like you said that you're comfortable around 240. I'm very comfortable around like 100, 105, 110. Like once it starts getting beyond that, my attention span starts to wane. As far as like writing goes, reading, give me a chunker. As long as it's good, I'm invested, right? Honestly, I kind of treat it like anime, which is why I'm probably such a One Piece fan, because I'm like, I don't have to think about what I'm gonna watch next. There is always gonna be another episode of One Piece. Like I'm happy. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to worry. Is it gonna be good? Am I gonna like it? Am I gonna be invested? I'm already here. I'm locked in. And when I get a chunker, like if I get a chunker, I'm happy because like I am locked in. I have time. I know that I can come back to this book and it's going to deliver what I need it to deliver. Thank you. But I'm also like when I'm writing, my brain starts to be like, okay, are we there yet? And I'm like, let's get there. I think I've done better with Project Necromancer and making sure that things happen at a better pace than they do in We Are the Origin and We Are Dying Gods. Mostly because I never wanted Tatiana to yell at me again like she did for We Are Dying Gods. And I was just like, never again, God, never again. She was like, I still had things that I had to fix. But I need y'all to know that y'all need friends who are going to hold you accountable and be like, you're better than this. And you can be like, yes, you're right. I will do better. Um, that being said, though, since you do write 200,000 word novels, right? Also, I'm going to ask this before I forget. Mags, I see that you retracted your question. Do you not want us to answer it or no? Like, let me know. Let me know. Um, I got distracted. I distracted myself. Damn. Oh, sorry. That's public life. Oops. Whatever. Anyway, what was I saying,
You're
Tatiana?
gonna ask me about long books.
Yes. So, Bones to the Wind and Dragging Your Bones. I know that those two in particular, you basically were like you wrote them at the same time. How did you know where to break it? And then how did you know that this was the end of where you wanted Raja's story to be?
Yeah. I broke it where I broke it because I was a troll. Uh, because it fed into the themes of the second book. That's the reason why I broke it where it's broken off. There are a lot of people that get disappointed because there are a certain plot point that's not resolved by the end of the first book. But I was intentional in breaking it off there because it fed into the themes of the second book and the things that I wanted to say in the second book. So kind of just being like thoughtful and intentional. Um, and it's definitely a point to where it wasn't the obvious point to break it off. Like a lot of other people would have broken it off in a different place. And this is kind of the knowing the rules to break the rules type of situation. Why I decided to do that. Um, but as I said, in regards to like the premise was coming of age competition to become adults. And so like when these children became adults and kind of just like the closure of that because it was a coming of age story.
Mm-hmm.
And we do have certain coming of age arcs where you
They go
rise
through
to
a
the
lot.
you yeah, they go through a lot. They go through a lot. And so it did follow kind of like that coming of age arc and broke some things along the way. Um, but with like my big 240,000 word stories, I think one of the reasons why they get so big is because I really love world building. I really love to like dig into the world because I don't do a lot of info dumping. I prefer to show.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing to know is in order to show people, sometimes that does take more length than just telling people. Now, there definitely are places where it is more efficient to just tell someone if it's a certain information. But when you want to show readers, that does take space,
Yeah.
like in the book. And I do love building a world and like bringing people through this world. That's one of the reasons why like because I went around after college, I did query traditional publishing, and about that time, like the sweet spot was 120, 140,000 words. And now it's like 100, like it's even shorter now.
Yeah.
The sweet spot fantasy book. And it's just like I knew what my natural length was, and it just felt like I was like twisting myself into boxes that I did not. I was just like, this isn't my voice. This isn't who I am anymore. This isn't for me.
Yeah. But I feel like
um,
that's really important to understand and to know because it's just like you know that the story that you were writing worked better in a longer in a longer span. And it's just like I think that's also something that comes with writing the story and knowing that like okay, this is where it feels right because it is a lot of it is intuitive, I would say, especially when you are writing a series, especially. Um but I wanted to also throw in Ben's question that popped up in the chat. We also have two questions in the actual questions widget, but Ben dropped in the chat. Did you have more confidence breaking off the book where you did because you had already written the second one? I think that's a really
100%.
good question.
Yeah, 100%. Since I already read the second, I finished the second book. I knew what the second one was about.
Yeah.
Like, so I couldn't have made a decision without having known what the second book was about. That is very much true. Now this book that I'm writing now, which is currently sitting at 230,000 words, and it's one of those things where I could break it off, but like I am happy enough in my journey as an author to be like, no, I'm not going to do that this time. I want to be able to give someone the full standalone story. So I'm very excited to see how that goes because I've decided not to break this book off in half, and to give people and it's a full story, it's a full adventure,
Mm-hmm.
and to see how people receive it.
Y'all have no idea how excited I am for this book. Like, as someone who read Bones to the Wind and Drag Your Bones, and I get insider information. Y'all have no idea how excited I am for this book. I need this book. I needed it like a year ago, but it's fine. I'm being patient. I understand it's a process. But anyway, when Tatiana drops the link for it and it's just like go get it, y'all best believe I'm gonna be first in line. Okay, no one's gonna beat me to it. Anywho, anyway,
Yeah. What about
um,
yourself, Chelsea? Because you just finished Project Necromancer. You went through several drafts to get there. How did you know this was it? This was the end?
oh, I am literally not as articulate as you or thoughtful as you. Um, I just got bored. I'm like I'm done. That's
Sometimes that's an end.
but no, in a more serious aspect, I think part of it is definitely the personal. Like, I'm ready to be done with these characters, with these stories, with this story, with this particular adventure, especially, right? I think for me, when I start getting to that point, I know that I'm okay. I'm reaching the end. I need to start wrapping this up because if me as the author am who knows these characters and have all the inside information, and I genuinely enjoy what I do and I enjoy my own writing, if I'm at a point where I'm like, okay, and that means it's time for me to like start wrapping this up, get to the point, right?
Yeah.
Um, but it's also one of those things where like logically in the story, I'm like, okay, have I done all the things that I've wanted to do? If I have already set these things up, like have I given enough attention to it? And are we at a point where we can start winding things down, right? Because if I start feeling like, okay, I need to add another plot point to like move this along, if it's a really big one, I'm like, that's a different book. That doesn't need to be here, right? And with Project Necromancer in particular, because it was intentionally written as a standalone and it did not start that way, which is a whole other conversation. Initially, when I started it, I was like, it's going to be a duology or a trilogy because it is a very big world with a lot of magic and different things going on, right? But when I decided, no, this is going to be a standalone, I was like, the big thing is to make sure that all of everything that I opened was closed succinctly enough. Not necessarily locked down, could never open it again, right? Because, like I said, I did write it so that if I wanted to write another book in the same series, I could. So if I want to come back to this world, I can. But I learned from the book that I never talk about, Keeping Promises, that sometimes it's better to just write, like, close it and let it be what it is, right?
I think you also brought up an interesting point a little bit earlier in regards to being tired and being bored of the book.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that is the point to where you show it to people, right? Like you've read, you've done so many drafts, you've read it so many times that, you're tired of it. You've given this book of yourself what you can possibly give, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the time when you show it to other people. Like I think authors say a lot, like by the time I get to like actually marketing a book,
I'm
it's
over
hard
it.
for me to have, yeah, you're over it. Like it's hard for me to be excited about it because like, oh, I've read it like 5,000 times. I'm over it by the time I have to market it and be excited about it to other people.
Literally that. Because, I mean, I feel like you guys are tired of hearing about Project Necromancer because I've been talking about it for 2 years. And it's just like, okay, Chelsea, we get it. Necromancers. Move on, right? But it's just like, okay, I finished it and it's, off doing its things. Because I mentioned this earlier on the channel. So, slight plug to go ahead and sign up and join the members, join the channel so that you can get all the insider in the moment information. But I'm currently querying Project Necromancer. And so for me, I'm like, okay, I'm moving on to the next stage of it, but it's still very much forefront of my mind because I'm still in the process of it, right? And so it's just one of those things where it's just like, yeah, it's you have to love it. And I think that's why there's also the prevalent advice of like you don't go into writing for money because even if you do make a lot of money, you have to spend a lot of time getting to that point, right? And if you don't love it, you're gonna get exhausted. You're gonna get burnt out really quickly. Um, but yeah, I think I'm gonna leave that there. I'm gonna leave that there. I love Project Necromancer, but I'm definitely at a point where I think for me also because I have other stories in particular series that I still want to go back to and finish. So at this point, I'm like, I want to go back to Wrath of the Gods. Like I want to write the third book because one, primarily, I want to finish it. I want to finish the story. Because at this point, I've grown as a person. I've grown as an author, and I just want the third book to feel like it still belongs in the same series and not like it's a completely different book, if that makes sense. Um, but also like Death Among the Stars has the first book has come out and It's a novella, so I didn't expect it. I did not expect it to do the numbers that the other ones did, but I love this story so much because it's very much like that, like space sci-fi anime story that I kind of wanted to write, and I'm like, that is where I want to be. And so I'm also like, I acknowledge that part of knowing that I'm done with Project Necromancer and to an extent the Wrath of the God series, because I'm like, there are other things that I want to write and there are other ideas, because it's not like the ideas just stop, right? I still got like 15 more books that I that I want to write, that are written down, that I'm just like, I need to get to that. It's not time yet, but I want to get to that, you know? Um, but that being said, hello, Margaret. Glad you could stop by. Amari is here as well. Hello, welcome. Glad you guys could make it. Thank you for being here. We do have two questions, and then we are going to migrate on over to the after chat. So again, seriously, if you guys want to join the chat after the chat, which is our candid conversation after everything, click the little join button. $5 gets you in. $10 gets you to the DNF book club, where Tatiana and I get together and we talk about books by Black authors in a safe space. La Purvis is also one of the co-hosts, and she's going to be with me at the end of the month on October, last Wednesday of the month. So what is that? October 29th? And we're going to be talking about Roar of the Lambs by Jameson Shea. So get into it. That being said, two questions. First one is from Mags. How important is giving yourself timelines to get the book finished? Also, is a finished book, also is finished book meaning it's published or just the manuscript is finished?
Um, at least during this conversation, when I was referring to finished book, I was referring to when the manuscript is finished.
Same.
Um, and in regards to the previous, I forget it already.
Uh,
What was the first part?
First part is how important is giving yourself timelines to get the book finished?
You know, when you're writing that first book before you're published, take all the time you need.
Yeah.
All the time. Because once you're published, like there's, and you try not to, but there's that pressure, right? Like people have read it, people want more, or, there's that pressure of just being an indie author in regards to like, okay, I need to, like I need to keep this going, keep brand visibility, or even trad, they have you on deadlines. So, um, enjoy the time when you don't have deadlines. Like
Yeah.
enjoy it to the fullest.
I
And
would.
like I know I'm very hard on myself because I'm like there are certain points. So for example, I did Gen Con this year and I really enjoyed it and I want to go back this year. And it was a great experience because it helped me make my money back on the sequel of Return of Sister Samurai in that first 2 months. And so, like now that is a goal with the Leviathan. I would love to have it out by then so I can make that money back. And those are business decisions, and sometimes that's where timelines come from is business decisions. So before like you dive into that business, enjoy that life with no timelines.
I highly, 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 highly second that, because it's one of the things that I always tell like my coaching clients. Like, this first book is that first one before you're out. That is the only time where you're just gonna have the absolute complete luxury of writing the book, going back and revising the book, and going back and revising the book, and not worrying about, oh, I have to get it to betas by this time. I have to get it into formatting. I have to get marketing. I have to do. Take your time, and that is really the time to figure things out. I would say not even just from the writing aspect, but from the business aspect. I feel that's a whole other conversation. But like setting things up, getting familiar with things, clicking through things with little to no pressure, right? Um, it's a magical time that you don't realize how magical it is until that first book is out in the world, and then people are. And I think it's one of those things, like, mentally you understand that books can be read in a day, right? But it's not until you spend years working on a book, on a project, and then you put it out, and then not even 24 hours later, you're like, someone is commenting, they're like, so when's the next one coming? And you're like, I just gave you 10 years of my life. What are you talking about? Let me celebrate the win first. You haven't even gotten off social media yet, and they're talking about, so when's the next one?
And
Um,
one advice I would like to give people to set up good habits, because after releasing that first book, a lot of people kind of break a little bit in
yeah.
regards to, Like they haven't set a good rhythm, they haven't set a good habits on writing, on like how to sit down and write. So getting that second book out or getting that sequel out is so difficult. And it
Yeah.
can sometimes take some people for years. So if you put those habits in before you publish, it will help you after you publish.
Yeah. So I guess my answer to the question is how important is it to give yourself timelines? I would say for the first book, really not important at all. Just get it done, move at your pace, and when you're ready, you'll be ready, right? I do think that you should have a goal, not necessarily a deadline, but a goal that you're striving for, so that it's concrete enough, so that you are working towards something to give yourself motivation, but also let it be like kind of fluid, kind of flexible, so that if it needs to move, if it needs to change, it can do that. I would say once your first book is out and you've decided to make this a career, right? Because I feel like that's also a choice that has to happen. It's not just a hobby, it's a career. Once you make that choice that it's a career, I would say that timelines are rather important. And we could definitely talk about this more in the after chat. But because, Tatiana and I have had this conversation recently about like the fact that there are numbers involved and like there's money to be made and there are things that have to be consistent and like you there's pressure. There is a actual pressure when you decide to make it a career, especially as an indie author, because you do have expenses, you do have things that you have to consider. You do have
Yeah.
to, yeah, because I will say this, as an indie author, you make the most money when you release a book. Like that's just
Mhm.
a fact. So,
Yeah, and then also, even though you're an indie author, it's not solitary. You're still having to collaborate with other people. You still need to get on your cover artist schedule. You still need to make sure you hire a copy editor and proofreader and get on their schedule when they're free. So there's other people's timelines you have to combine with your timeline
yeah.
to make sure everything runs smoothly.
And yeah, and there's also, like critique partners and things. And I think I mentioned it on the channel, but like one of the things that I was trying to do, especially with like getting Project Necromancer done when it was because Tatiana and La both had a break in their schedules, and they were like, I have time to read this before I dive into my next project, because it's just like, yeah, I would like you to read it, but it's like if you have other things to do, you can't just assume that everybody else's world stops because you're on a timeline or a deadline, right? So being mindful of that. But we could talk about this more in the after chat, if you want to. Um, Ben also had a question of like, how do you know when to stop the book when there is more to the story? And I think we kind of touched on this, but to just kind of reiterate, at least for me, it's deciding that this particular journey is done. And I think of it very much like episodes, right? Like this episode is done. There might be another adventure. We might go do something else, but this particular adventure, we can sum it up here and the reader can feel content with being like, okay, I read this start to finish and I don't feel like I'm upset that it ended here. Like there's more to it, right? With the exception of like We Are the Origin of We Are Dying Gods, because that series in particular, they were meant to be like read back to back. They just didn't come back to back. I digress. Tatiana.
Yeah, like there's a difference between like a standalone with series potential, right? Like you want a closed story, but you still have loose threads that you can pick up in a potential book that follows. Even for example, we have like something that a lot of fantasy romance and romance authors have kind of pioneered in regards to picking up the next series with completely different characters that
Mm-hmm.
you might have side characters that might have been introduced in the in the first book, but now they're bigger characters and on their own journey in the second book of the series. So there's definitely a lot of ways to do it, and a lot of ways to keep picking things up if you want to continue the series. But at the end of the day, like as you said, Ben, it kind of you know doing that promise of what's on the 10 and making sure that first book is satisfying, because if that first book isn't satisfying, they're not moving on to the next one.
They're not. Um, And I think that's a whole other conversation of talking about how your previous book sells your next one. But we again, that is a different conversation that we could talk about at a later date. But that is it for this particular Melanin Chat. So this is your reminder to go ahead and join the channel or sign up for our membership over on the melaninlibrary.com and get into the after chat, get into the Discord server, get into the DNF book club. Like I said, we're going to be reading Roar of the Lambs by Jameson Shea. I do actually have the book, but it's not with me. Um, and it's a great conversation if you want to continue being a part of the community even when we are not live. Um, that said, I do want to let you guys know that hopefully we will be, not even hopefully, we will be back for the next Melanin Chat. And instead of talking about how to finish a book, we're going to be talking about how to start a book, which is a whole other conversation. Whole other conversation. But yeah, if you like Tatiana here on the chat, please say nice things in the comments so that I can encourage her to come back and be a consistent host on the chat. Okay? Thanks. That being said, you guys, thank you so much for being here. Be sure to follow both of us on social media. You can follow me at CLockhartWright. You can follow Tatiana at Obey the Author. And yeah, tap the like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notifications so you don't miss when we go live. Click that join button if you haven't already. And that's it. You got anything, Tatiana?
No, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And yeah, we're in the after chat, so we'll see you guys over there. Until next time, hope your days are lovely and your books are interesting. Bye, you guys.